Hey everybody, Eric Schweitzer here for TheGamer, and today I am joined by the world's leading Majima stands, Meg Pelliccio,
Hello.
Jade King,
I love Majima.
and the Gamer's editor, Stacey Henley.
Hello.
So, as you may or may not know, it is Like a Dragon week at TheGamer. We're celebrating all things Yakuza. And unfortunately, I have not been able to participate because I am a dragon virgin.
That's what they call them.
That's what I'm told they're called. So I have assembled this esteemed panel of Like a Dragon experts to try to convince me which Yakuza to start with. I have heard there's a lot of them.
Yeah.
I'm overwhelmed. I'm intimidated. Let's start with Meg. Meg, which Like a Dragon game do you recommend people, and me specifically,
I
play
always
first?
stand by this. I think Yakuza Kiwami is the one people should go for.
All right. Spell that for me.
What, Kiwami?
I'll look it up. Go ahead.
Basically, it's a remake of the original game. So you're starting at the first game, obviously where the series started, but the nice, shiny version. And I just think, even though Zero is a prequel, so chronologically that comes first, I think there's something to be gained by meeting the characters for the first time as you were meant to meet them. And there are a lot of like cameos and characters that appear in Zero that you're only really going to appreciate if you've already played some of the other games. So I just think Kiwami is the best way to go. In regards to Majima, who I obviously love immensely, I also think, especially for him, because I mean, you must know him enough to know that he's
Meg, I have no idea what you're talking about. You're saying a lot of
Really?
words.
It's the guy with the eye patch.
Yeah, you know the guy that like I post all the time in Slack, and whenever I write about like dragons
Through your mailbox, just all
I
the
like
time.
use his picture all the time.
Yeah, that body pillow you showed me.
Yeah, that one. Yeah. Basically, he's very quirky and eccentric. And in Zero, he's not like that. So
Okay,
I think...
so you're telling me there's Yakuza, and then Kiwami is a remake of Yakuza, but then there's a one called Zero, which is before that.
Yeah, so Yakuza Kiwami is Yakuza 1, but remade in the Dragon Engine and all pretty with some extra...
I want to say Kiwami means like beginning or something. That could be a complete lie.
You know, like how they remastered The Last of Us, so it was even better. It's basically
The Last of Us
that.
Kiwami. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what they called it.
I mean, that feels like a logical place to start.
Thank you.
Does anyone want to jump in and explain why Meg's wrong?
I think I just want to point out quickly that Jade is the rational person to speak next, but just so the viewers know, Meg is 100% obsessed with Majima.
Yeah.
She has, it might actually be in her room behind her there. She has a hard hat.
It's behind the pillar now.
She has it's not just any hard hat. It's an official hard hat that was worn by Majima, who of course is a fictional character and therefore did not wear it, that she spent their years far too much money on.
Jeez.
So,
I know this about Meg. If a game has a character creator, she will be playing Majima in that game.
Yeah.
her pawn in Dragon's Dogma is Majima, actually.
And he catches me when I fall. And it's lovely.
Okay, Jade.
What do you got, Jade?
Going to your pitch? I think yours is Zero,
So,
right?
I'm going to maybe be controversial here and say that I think the very best moments we ever get from Majima as a character come from Yakuza 0. That's because he isn't the man he becomes. Because I've always thought we see a lot in his backstory, and we get a lot of that in the future games, obviously, especially in like Yakuza 4 and 5. But I do love the way we see his like descent into madness and what turns him into like the mad dog, as it were. But Yakuza 0 is my choice, and I'm not sure if it's the best in the series. It's very close, but I think the reason why it is my choice, there's a lot of context behind that. When you look at when Yakuza 0 came out, the series had kind of died in the West, like with Dead Souls and stuff. It took 5 years to come over. And I think from that perspective, they were preparing to close off Yakuza's story, but Kiryu's story, but they also wanted to introduce this thing to a much wider audience. Like you had Ishin, then you had Yakuza 0, which, as we've said, is a prequel. It takes place in the 1980s. It follows Kiryu and Majima as like dual protagonists of sorts. And there is a lot of stuff there that you kind of are enriched by knowing the history of the future games. But I almost think it's stronger that it has that mystery, and you're like piecing together these different disparate parts of who this character is and the journey they've been on. And it does offer a context that I think makes Kiwami 2, and pretty much every game that comes after that much, much stronger. Oh,
I do
that's all
agree,
narrative
Jade.
stuff. But...
In a lot of ways, like I agree with Jade. Zero's like
wow, swayed so
technically-
easy.
And no, I still say Kiwami, but like Zero is like, you know, in terms of gameplay and you know everything, it is a very good game. And I would have said it's the best in the series, but we've got Infinite Wealth now, and so I think that's top now. But before Infinite Wealth, Zero was, I would say, was the best game. But I mean, there's something to be said. Do you really want to start at the best and go downhill?
Kiwami's worse, so play that one first. I love that logic. No, because you are right, but also, yeah, oh my god. We're very good at standing on our heels.
I get how much you both love these characters. I think you're taking for granted that I'm going to start with one and then play all of them, and that's just how it's going to be.
Oh, I'm not. We haven't got to my game yet.
All right. Let's hear Stacey's, and then I'll tell you why all three of you are wrong, maybe.
So the thing is, you've got to remember, Meg and Jade, they're both like OGs at this. They've both been in it since the beginning. They have never had the sensation that I have had. They are not speaking from experience. They're not of the people. They're not the proletariat.
We never had to consider this entry point because we were there before the remakes existed.
Yeah.
So we're like...
They've played through the whole thing and are now kind of picking out a favourite or a best starting point. I didn't start the series until Yakuza Like a Dragon, or 7, which is the first one where we get Ichiban. It changes to turn-based, it takes on a new protagonist. I think that is the best starting point because, first off, it's a starting point.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of the same argument that the other two games have. Jade's is chronologically, Meg's was released first. And I do think when we have these conversations, because we do have them a lot at the site, it is a kind of, you need to do this one because this moment in Yakuza 4 is great. And I just don't think you can put that on people to play them all. That's I think Like a Dragon is a more natural starting point. It's a new character, it's a new start, it's turn-based, which all the future games are going to be. It does have some references to previous characters, like they show up and there's like the music changes and it's, oh, this is a person, but to you playing it, they're still important to the story, even though you don't recognize that the bartender used to be in one of the previous games. You still kind of get that they're important to the wider story.
It's like, he's a bartender. What's
They're
he
playing
doing?
solemn guitar in the background. They must be important.
Yeah. I feel like the way Like a Dragon plays is, I guess, almost more modern. I know Zero is not that old a game. Kiwami obviously modernizes the first one, but it's, even though it's turn-based rather than action-based, I tend to think of turn-based as being a little bit more dated, it just has a lot more of the conventions that I think modern gamers would like. It's really easy to look back at the previous games and say this one's great because I had a great time with it 10 years ago and it really meant a lot to me. But I think in terms of getting new people into the series, I think you need to ease them in with a game that they're going to enjoy. And having gone back and played Kiwami after playing Like a Dragon, I think you will find a lot more friction with that, just because it's a little bit more dated and convoluted in it, how it's built. And you don't need to go on and play 6 more after my pick. You can just leave that arc behind and go and play Infinite Wealth. I know there's parts of Infinite Wealth story that do have a lot of weight, but we did, Meg and James and I did, and you, Eric, did the catch-up on Infinite Wealth at the time, and I said even though I didn't know a lot of those actual moments, I still understood like the importance of revisiting those memories. I still kind of felt something for them. So I'm always going to put forward Like a Dragon, because that is when the series, I know the previous one's been in the West, but that was when it really kicked off in the West. That's a turning point for the series as a whole. And I think it just represents the modern audience that it's going for. I think if you want to explore the history and understand why everyone cares so much about this, then by all means do the other two suggestions. If you just want to play it and enjoy it, do my thing.
That brings up an interesting like divergence. Do you think there are two options here? There's a game you should play if you intend to play the entire series, or a game you should start with if you literally want to disregard a lot of like the Kiryu and Majima backstory and essentially treat this as like an Ichiban Kasuga franchise from now on? Because with that logic, Like a Dragon, Infinite Wealth, those are the two games you'd go for. Otherwise, I think that starting point is something different.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think what a lot of people will do in the real world is play one of the Like a Dragon ones. I know they're all Like a Dragon now, but play one of the Like a Dragon ones, enjoy it, and then do what I did and go back and play it in that order. So it might not be the optimum order because you do spoil certain things of what's coming up, but I think it's probably the best way for someone to get hooked. I think if someone comes to you who doesn't work for a site with Meg, who is showing pictures of this guy all the time, and says, I want to play this series, it sounds really cool. I've read a load of really cool interviews on TheGamer this week. Where should I start? I think you are setting your expectations high to tell somebody, play this game and then 8 more.
Yeah,
you want to tell them a
unrealistic
game that they will play and like.
I believe people can do it. I believe Eric can do it.
Yeah,
I believe in you, everyone. You can do it.
I can definitely appreciate a long-term payoff. I mean, I'm a Kingdom Hearts guy, something Stacey hates when I remind her of.
Yes.
We're still waiting for that payoff.
Yeah, and one day I'll get the payoff.
Yeah.
If you can stick with Kingdom Hearts, you can stick with this.
But the thing is, Meg, I started with Kingdom Hearts when I was 12 years old, and I'm an old man now, and I'm busy.
I started Yakuza when I was 12.
I got a lot of Disney trading cards to collect.
Yeah,
and so like I find Stacey's argument most compelling, but I also think it's interesting that Meg even said this used to be the best one until Infinite Wealth. Why would I not just start with the best one?
It's two different sides. So like it's the best in terms of like gameplay and things like that. Overall, like it's the whole package. But if you want to get invested in the narrative, which is what I generally base my opinion on because I love the whole storyline and the characters and everything so much, I think coming in later, even especially with Infinite Wealth, because that heavily, like, you know, throws back cameos and references to the past, you'd be doing yourself... If you plan to want to play the whole series, going in at Infinite Wealth would ruin parts of the series throughout the whole series for you.
Yeah.
That's why I would, even though it is the best one.
I don't want to pick on you. I'll pick on Jade next. Like when you say if you want to get invested or if you plan to play, like that's not. I feel like that's not up to me or anyone who's playing a game. Like they're just gonna play a game and like it or not. Like do people actually go?
True,
I'm gonna play this whole series. Like
if you plan it and don't like the first one, you can stop. And even if you aren't planning it, if you like it, my answer to your question just very quickly is I think Yakuza Like a Dragon is marginally better than Infinite Wealth.
Is that controversial?
I think they're both pretty highly regarded. I don't know.
Meg looks like she got her feelings hurt when you said that.
I mean, I've said this before.
Infinite Wealth is more meaningful to people who've played the whole thing because it's got the whole Kiryu wrap up. As an overall game of enjoyment, then I think both are great. I expect Infinite Wealth to be my game of the year this year. But Like a Dragon was my game of the year, I think, in 2020. I didn't work at the site then, so I didn't do a list, but I think it was probably my favourite game that came out that year. I think that I would put that for one, because it's entirely focused on one person. It's not split. I think the pacing in Infinite Wealth is a bit off sometimes when you swap between the two different characters. But they're both kind of great game. I mean, we could all stand here and say, they're all great. Pick anyone, but that wouldn't be much of a video.
Because
so I'm going to say, I think
one thing we can agree on is that we'll all agree you should not start with Gaiden, like the man who erased his name.
No, because it's literally a prologue to Infinite Wealth. Like, it doesn't make any sense.
And it also spoils, like, 6 and 7. So like, just don't start there. If you really want to throw like a dart at a board, don't pick that one.
Pick any of the numbered ones, I think, right? That's just...
I started with 4, and that
Just-
was like, I was a teenager, but man, I was so lost. So I kind of had that situation before 5 even existed.
Yeah, maybe not any of the numbered ones. Yeah, that's a good point.
Jade, it feels like Zero's really bringing up the rear here. Do you feel like doubling down?
I do, you know. I think. Oh. I don't know, I'd say Zero. I haven't finished Infinite Wealth yet. I'll preface that. Zero is probably my favorite in the series, but I think it's partially because it is kind of this time capsule of a game. Like, I love the appeal of it. Envisioning the setting I'm familiar with in the 80s and then watching that transform. It being a prologue to like Majima and Kiryu stories and leading into Kiwami. And there's also some other stuff with like Kiryu's close friend, which makes his eventual character arc and shift in like allegiances in Kiwami hit so much harder because you see how close they are. I do think in retrospect it makes Kiwami a stronger game, partially because it spends all of this time setting stuff up, and even mechanically I think it's more polished and visually interesting. But again, now I've kind of shifted my own perspective in my brain, where I think if you're going to play the entire series, start at Yakuza 0, but if you're not in it for that kind of long haul, maybe like a Dragon or Infinite Wealth is a better starting point.
It's interesting because most people would agree with Jade, I think. I think if you took a big survey, not just asked us three who came with specific different opinions, a lot of people would say Zero. It's first. It's like watching Star Wars and starting with The Phantom Menace.
Oh, I wouldn't recommend that either.
Well, you're really here for like a new hope. That's what
Yeah.
you're here with.
Yeah.
And I'm for what, the Last Jedi?
Yeah, I
Is that
think
what
you're
I'm here
saying
for?
we should start with The Last
I've talked
Jedi.
about this argument very quickly.
Oh God!
It's like Dune Part 2. Hear me out. Because I watched those. I tried to read Dune properly. Like, I think I was in uni, and I was like, "Oh, this is dense bollocks." But then, sci-fi masterpiece, like, you know. But I watched the movie and then went back, and I was like, "Oh, okay, I get it now. I know what a Harkonnen is. I know how the spice flows." So, like, Yakuza 0 is basically the Dune movies, but then like Kiwami is like the Dune book. You can be like, then I get it now. You know what I mean?
I don't want to read a book.
It doesn't feel like a book after that because it's like, I get it.
So, like, weirdly, with Yakuza 0 and Kiwami, it does go both ways. So Jade is right that by playing 0, you get more of an emotional connection to one of the characters in Kiwami, which makes that storyline more impactful, like 100%.
Yeah.
But then, like I was saying, there's also stuff in 0 you won't appreciate if you haven't played Kiwami. So weirdly, it's like a two-way street. So there's benefits to picking either of them first, really.
I'm trying to think of the piece of media that I was going to relate this to, but Yakuza 0 is also kind of interesting playing after something like Kiwami because you know where it's leading and you're almost like waiting for those seeds to be planted to eventually lead to tragedy for some of these characters. So that's also an intriguing perspective to have.
You know, we did this exercise a few years ago with Pokemon.
We did, yeah.
Which one won?
Let's go.
My choice won again. I say again because I feel like I'm winning this one. It was Let's Go, yeah.
So Stacey said start with Let's Go. It's the most approachable. It's a modernized of the original. Somebody else said start with Gold and Silver because they're the best ones. Somebody else said start at the beginning. Somebody else said start with the newest one. And the answer at the end was really just go back to being 11 and play Pokemon then so that you'll fall in love with it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think we should add the person did start with Let's Go and then gave up and never played a Pokemon game again.
Right, because it was a 35-year-old man trying to play Pokemon for the first time.
Who was it?
It was Andy Kelly.
So are we in a similar situation here where it's like, yeah, I could start like you did, but I really can't because you love these games because you've been playing them for 20 years.
I started 4 years ago. So
Well, I guess
think
Stacey
it's a tick
wins.
in my column. No, I think that's true. You do need sometimes to just say it mattered to me when I was a kid, and that's why I feel really strongly about this. And you want someone else to get in it, but they're just never quite going to. Like, I remember when the Mass Effect Legendary Edition came out, and I was really excited for other people to play, because that was really the game that I played when I was a kid. That was the game that I really connected with. And everyone played it and went, it's kind of cool. The shooting's not very good. And I was like, I don't care about the shooting, though. Like, this was a game I stayed up until, like, well, basically, yeah, I stayed up until, like, 3 o'clock in the morning trying to save the galaxy. And, like, then I didn't have any guides back then. So, like, people died in the test tubes. And I had to start the whole thing again. And like... Jacob says, "Oh, I can go in the steam vent." I go, "Oh, yes, great." And everyone dies because rubbish at it. Like, so you can't really recreate sometimes those feelings. I think. What I would say is, I wish I had started with one of the earlier games and played them when I was younger, because I've kind of been going back and trying to fit them all in, just because I really like the newer ones, and it's it's not as impactful to play parts of Infinite Wealth and not understand this memory where a house comes out of another house and it's clearly a big thing that happened.
It was a castle.
What are you talking about? See, you see, I have no knowledge.
Do they go back to Sunshine Orphanage at all in Infinite Wealth?
He remembers a lot of different things. He walks around and like remembers stuff. Is the main gist of it? I think that's the non-spoiler thing we can say, right? He wanders around and remembers stuff.
Yeah. Realistically, all 3 of these choices are 100% viable places to start.
No, that's what I'm thinking, because I'm thinking in my head.
Yeah, I agree. I would agree.
Because we're talking about like playing the entire series, but realistically, if you wanted to get all of Kiryu's story and cut out basically the faff.
There's no faff.
0, Kiwami, 6, 7, Gaiden, Infinite Wealth. I think those are like the machete order of Yakuza, if you wanted to get down to it. 2, 3, 4, and 5, excellent. Don't get me wrong.
What's the shortest Yakuza?
Oh, Dead Souls, maybe? If you're not counting Gaiden.
That's where I'll start.
the zombie one that's on PS3.
Thank you very much. I'm glad we sorted this one out.
Hey, at least Majima's in it, so win.
Oh, the PSP ones are quite short, but they're only in Japan.
Before we wrap up, can I have each of you tell me your favorite piece from Like a Dragon Week on the site, Meg?
I think my favorite piece has to be on Horitomo, the tattoo artist. That one was like a surprise get. It was like a lucky find.
What's it called?
It's called Meet the artist behind the Like a Dragon series tattoos, I believe. Let me find it.
That sounds
cool. Meet the artist behind the Like a Dragon series iconic tattoos. Yeah.
And you interviewed the tattoo designer?
Yeah.
Cool.
And asked him about Majima's tattoo, obviously.
Yeah. Okay. Jade, you have a favorite one?
I think mine is another one of Meg's. It's the one she did with some of the localization folks over at Sega, like delving into changing the name of the series, talking about adapting some of those cultural sensibilities that you see in Yakuza and making sure they appeal to an international audience. And they also say some cool stuff about like the current conversation you have about like localization versus censorship. And I have the headline here and I can read it out.
Yep.
Like a Dragon's localization team on adapting humor, the name change, and translation versus localization. But we've had a lot of really good interviews from like Meg and some great opinion pieces and almost like retrospectives from across the editorial team this week. And a lot of them are worth checking out.
Cool. Stacey, what's yours?
I was also going to say one of Meg's, but instead I'm going to be a little bit self-indulgent and also break the rules and mention an article that wasn't for Like a Dragon Week. I wrote about a month ago about Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth, about my grandma passed away the same day that Infinite Wealth came out. Infinite Wealth has a lot of Elvis stuff in there. My grandma was a really big Elvis fan. We played that at his funeral. He also had cancer, which is what Kiryu has in the game. So it was just a really personal experience for me to kind of be playing through this idea of Elvis and memories and death while all that was kind of hanging over me. And I feel like I'm always kind of personal with what I write because I don't really have a filter, but that is probably the most personal that I've gotten. And I thought it came out quite well. I was quite proud of it.
Like
so
that's a beautiful piece. Yeah.
Yeah. It wasn't for this week though, but I've only written a couple this week, and I was going to mention another one of Meg's interviews. The Chichose and Tomizawa one quite good.
Oh, the Chitose one isn't up yet. That goes up tomorrow. So yeah.
That's
Well,
or yesterday, because this isn't running today.
this isn't live, Meg.
Video.
Edit that bit out.
Excellent. I will have all of those pieces linked down in the description, as well as our hub for Like a Dragon Week, where you can read all of our different interviews and features from the event. Thank you so much for watching. That's it for this video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that bell, and visit us at thegamer.com. That's TheGamer, no space.